Hello everyone. So we are here for part 3 of organic chemistry. So here we're going to talk about how to identify different types of organic compounds by their functional groups. And we're going to go ahead and compare different properties of compounds based upon those functional group characteristics. I don't know if you guys remember Chemistry Cat from back in the day. Like, this was one of the OG Facebook memes. It was like the only time anyone enjoyed mainstream chemistry things. So we can decipher 2/3 of this meme. However, to finish our meme lore knowledge, to know exactly what all of this means, we're gonna have to talk about functional groups in organic chemistry. So go ahead, read this, and we'll learn what amines are by the end of our presentation. So, that being said, I kind of alluded to this here. So here we're going to talk about functional groups in organic chemistry. So that's kind of the theme here for part 3. So we've been talking about how to name alkanes, alkenes, and alkynes and aromatics based upon some simple substituents. So like those alkyl groups and those halides that might be attached to our structure. However, the real fun in organic chemistry begins with more complex substituents and their properties. So I'm not going to ask you to name these, but I do want you to be able to identify them from the chart that I give you. So the book does talk about how to name them. Again, we are not going to name these. I just want you to be able to look at a structure and identify the functional group and its name using a chart. So I'll walk you through it. I'll show you how to do that. That's kind of where I'm going with this. So don't get too worked up. The naming is all in part 2 that you'll need. Again, the book goes into a little bit more detail than we will about this. So I just want you to be able to look at the structure and then look at a list of functional groups and see if you can identify the functional group of that structure. So what is a functional group? Well, a functional group is a defined set of atoms that can be substituted onto a hydrocarbon. So like a group of atoms that have specific chemical properties that react in specific ways that are very predictable. And so we call those functional groups. When talking about functional groups, we really only care most of the time about the functional group itself. It's the most interesting part of the structure, likely. So we often denote the rest of the hydrocarbon chain as an R group, and the R group can represent any hydrocarbon chain. So here, this is kind of trying to denote what a functional group might look like. So you'll have the highlighted part of your structure here on the screen as the functional group. These are OH groups, which are alcohols. And the rest of the hydrocarbon group can be marked with an R, and again, that can be anything. It can be a huge long carbon chain, it could be an aromatic ring, it can be anything you want it to be. However, you will have, it doesn't matter. We're kind of hiding all of that information and like collapsing it in and just calling it R. So down here, I have 2 different examples of alcohols to kind of show you that that R group doesn't matter here. So what we're looking for is that OH functional group. So the R group here is a methyl group. The R group here is an isopropyl group. So it's got that isopropyl group here. So it doesn't matter whether it's a 3-carbon chain. It doesn't matter whether it's a 1-carbon chain. It doesn't matter whether it's a 20-carbon chain. Anything can be hidden underneath that R group symbol. So you'll see me use this notation throughout so that I can emphasize what we're actually looking for the functional group. So that being said, for the rest of the slides here, I'm going to walk you through a bunch of different functional groups and kind of what they look like, where you may have experienced them in your everyday life, and how to identify them. I will give you the chart that I will give you on the exam and on your homework to be able to identify those functional groups. I'll kind of walk you through that a little bit. And then the rest of the video will focus just a tiny bit on polymers. And so we'll look at some polymers. However, I don't expect you to be able to name, identify, or deal with polymers on the homework or the exam. I just think it's an interesting topic, and it's something that we deal with a lot in our everyday lives. So I kind of want to bring them up here, but again, the polymers will not be on the exam, but you do need to be able to identify functional groups through their structure for the homework and for the exam as well. So let's get going.